Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. An OECS member state calls for an end to the U.S. embargo on Cuba. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Monday, 7th November 2022. Details when we return.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. St. Kitts and Nevis UN representative calls for embargo against Cuba to be lifted. Andre Huey of SKN Newsline reports.
St. Kitts and Nevis has once again called on the United States of America to remove the decades-old economic, commercial, and financial embargo against Cuba. That call came in the maiden address of the St. Kitts and Nevis permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Nerys Dockery, on Thursday during the UN General Assembly 26th plenary meeting.
St. Kitts and Nevis finds it regrettable that several reversals were made since that brief period of détente, and the blockade is still a reality for the Cuban people, and it denounces the imposition of unilateral coercive measures against a sovereign state. This unjust embargo drives a stake through the heart of international law, makes a mockery of the principles of sovereignty and non-intervention that governs interstate relations, which are protected by the United Nations Charter, and severely impedes Cuba's ability to fully engage the international community, to adequately provide basic public services for its people, and thereby its aspirations for meeting the Sustainable Development Goals.
She described the embargo as an extreme burden on the development, well-being, and stability of the people of Cuba and the entire Caribbean. She stressed the contributions Cuba has made to the development of public health in the region through its benevolence and medical innovations.
Cuba's benevolence was even further demonstrated through its own contribution in the race to find a vaccine. Not only did it develop 5 domestic vaccines, 2 of which were eventually approved for international use and were offered to those nations unable to afford other, more expensive doses. In the face of such magnanimity, altruism, and compassion that can be counted in the many lives saved, not lost, how can Cuba justifiably continue to be designated by the United States as a state sponsor of terrorism? Surely, this unwarranted and even neo-colonial designation and the attendant sanctions attached to it defies all logic, reasons, and indeed the spirit of the United Nations.
A resolution supporting the ambassador's call was passed 185 in favor, 2 no, and 2 abstentions. Ambassador Dockery's address was lauded by the Cuban embassy in St. Kitts and Nevis on Twitter. Thank you, Sister St. Kitts and Nevis Ambassador, for your strong and unwavering support. A tweet from the Deputy Foreign Minister of Cuba also praised the ambassador's speech. This was the ambassador's first speech since she presented her credentials just over a week ago to the United Nations General Assembly as the St. Kitts and Nevis permanent representative to the United Nations. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
Guyana's Vice President Dr. Barrett Jagdeo revealed that government auctioned several oil blocks offshore ranging from 1,000 square kilometers to 3,000 square kilometers. Here is Shema Aline of HGP Nightly News with some details.
During a press conference on Thursday, Vice President Dr. Barrett Jagdeo revealed that Cabinet had given the green light to auction 14 oil blocks offshore Guyana. Out of the 14 oil blocks, 11 will be in the shallow areas, while 3 will be in the deep areas. Moreover, there will be a US $10 million signature bonus for the shallow areas, while the deep areas will be a minimum of US $20 million.
The new fiscal regime, which will now govern not only the award and the contracts that we will sign with the bidders who were successful, but will govern all of the subsequent PSAs that we will sign for any other exploration that's already taken place in the other areas, for Kaichor and the other areas.
Moreover, the Vice President said the 50% profit sharing would remain while the royalty rate would go to 10% and a corporate tax of 10%. To this end, Jagdeo said consultants are working to strengthen the production sharing agreement.
The PSA, we have the consultants working to strengthen the PSA to be ready before.
Meanwhile, the senior government official said stringent relinquishment clauses are in place. Reporting for AGP Nightly News, I am Shamar Allen.
The Seventh-day Adventist Church continues to be concerned over the escalating crime situation in St. Lucia. Jason Darius of the DBS News World provides some details.
The St. Lucia Mission of Seventh-day Adventists continue to express concern over the spate of crime and violent behavior currently experienced on the island. President of the mission, Pastor Roger Stephen, says the church has made efforts to help curtail the issue with its recent hosting of crime reduction specialist Dr. Niels Chaitin earlier this year. However, crime continues to grow in St. Lucia.
We are appalled by what St. Lucia has become as it relates to crime. And it is affecting every citizen of this island. It affects the church. For example, because of the high rate of crime in St. Lucia, we have our pastors. Our pastors have to do so much more in counseling those, the families of the perpetrators, as well as the families of those who have lost loved ones. And we are seeing so much heartache. We have quite a lot of counseling to do. We have the funeral services are so many. And we really want to appeal as a church to those persons who believe that violence and the weapon is the answer. It will never be the answer. What we need and what we have been speaking of as a church is what God and the Bible teaches. Loving our neighbors, loving one another. The biggest answer to this whole situation of crime in St. Lucia is love.
Pastor Stephen firmly believes that the island requires a holistic effort from all sections of society if there is to be a change in this damning trend. He highlights proper parenting as one of the bigger challenges in addressing crime.
We are seeing children are now being nurtured by a surrogate mother called the tablet, the television, and all of these gadgets. Parents are absent from the home. We have absentee fathers. And so this is one of the major issues that we are seeing in society today. We are seeing the young men who are being brought up with a lot of anger because of the absenteeism of a father. And so they are so quick to look for this father figure in a gang. And they feel that they are secured not by the love of a father because he is absent, but they feel so secure if they have a gun by their side, if they have a knife by their side, immediately they feel empowered. And so one of the biggest challenge that we're seeing is parenting.
Meanwhile, the Grizzly Police Subdivision of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, in conjunction with the Ministry of Equity, Social Justice and Empowerment, will be hosting a, quote, Police in My Community Forum, unquote, where organizers have invited proprietors of businesses in the Grizzly District to discuss matters about safety and security. This forms part of the RSLPF's efforts to strengthen community policing initiatives. The event is scheduled for November 8th at the Grizzly Human Resource Center from 6 p.m. For the DBS News World, Jason Darius reporting.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
One political analyst in Trinidad and Tobago is weighing in on the Prime Minister's contribution at a party meeting earlier last week in Chaguanas. Nicole M. Romani of TV6 News reports.
Derek Ramsamuj says what was very clear from the presentations was the direction in which the party is taking its next election campaign.
The notion of the housing policy of going back where the government, the state, will provide housing for citizens and be involved in the construction of said housing clearly demonstrates the old political philosophy of ensuring people, the state provides a home for people, which is an old political tool of 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s.
He further notes that part of the Prime Minister's address appeared to affirm that he remains in charge.
There was a very small element of the presentation, but whatever was put forward, clearly it established Dr. Rowley as the leader of the PNM. He was very dismissive of the challenge by a particular individual. And to be fair, you can't be fighting this politics from outside. Our political culture makes it difficult for you to challenge an incumbent leader by not even being in the parliament or in the mainstream party.
Mr. Ramsamouche says to replace a political leader would be a fight to the finish, noting that Dr. Rowley, like many past prime ministers, at one time or another, gave the impression that they will retire, but never formally said it.
All individuals, when given the opportunity to be a political leader, very rarely would they step down. Look, if you look at Boris Johnson, he had to be kicked out. The only way you change leaders is by an internal political bloodbath. If you want the leadership, if you want a challenge, then you've got to get into a political confrontation head on.
In reference to the electorate, the political analyst says a shift in behavior and an evolution in thinking is required for the politics of the day to be better.
Do we understand the nature of our individual citizens regardless of the level? It's self-survival. And if I have to live in a bubble to survive and for my family to be safe, I will live in a bubble. We have not yet created a sense of community, national community. We have tribal community. We have the society broken by sectors. Whether you're a businessman, whether you're a CPEP worker.
Nicole M. Romani, TV6 News.
Crime continues to plague Clarendon in Jamaica as 10 people were shot and killed in several different incidents in the parish in just 12 hours. Nika Lewis of CVM News reports.
3 men were shot, 2 fatally, in Yorktown, Clarendon, Tuesday night, raising the number of killings in the parish to 10 over just a 12-hour period. One of the deceased has been identified as a 54-year-old Sylvester Richardson, while the other victims are yet to be identified. Police reports are that at about 10 p.m., Richardson and the other men were at a shop when a gunman, posing as a customer, entered and opened fire, hitting all 3 men. They were each taken to the hospital. Councillor for the Yorktown Division, Ufeld Purcell, says the parish's crime problem has grown more alarming.
It's really sad because I don't know what is happening. This coming like some show, movie we are watching, where you have the guys who have the guns are just using their gun just to kill people for no reason. I don't see any reason why anyone's supposed to shoot anyone. And I'm calling on the young men, please stop it.
Purcell says the government should have already announced a plan for curtailing crime in the parish, as residents are growing more fearful.
And I'm hearing that the government is saying they are going to announce a crime plan at their conference next month, or this month should say. I think that should have come long ago, and the Prime Minister should have announced a crime plan long ago so that it can take effect by now, and the young men especially can realize that there's something out there for them to deal with them whenever they use a gun or create this crime and criminality upon the citizens of this land.
Meanwhile, he's encouraging the criminals to make use of the gun amnesty by handing in their illegal firearms.
It's going to be an amnesty, irrespective of what happened, handing the guns, because this can't continue. Your family, your friends, and every single person will feel the hands of the guns when you have it, whether you use it to kill someone or you have it for another reason, it will turn back and harm you.
The 10 killings, including 2 double murders, occurred in Tollgate, York Yorktown, Buckner, and Chapelton. Veronique Bowen, CVM Live.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick, wishing you a restful weekend. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.